I found it on Rhema Radio.
GE14 is approaching on the 8th of May, and the NECF has issued a call to pray and fast for the nation. 21 minutes for 21 days at 9 p.m. daily, from the 21st of April to the 11th of May. 21, 21, 21. Let's come together in your family, friends, and small groups and pray for Malaysia in this defining moment. For more information, log on to necf.org.my.
When was the last time you heard a sermon on Isaiah? I mean really, a full sermon from the book of Isaiah, and not just a quote. Never. And you're not alone. And do you know why? The reason is there are hardly any sermons at all from this amazing book. Okay, so why are there hardly any sermons? Well, very few people, be it pastors or Bible scholars, truly study and understand this amazing book. Would you like to find out more about this book? There's a seminar on Isaiah, the timeless prophet, coming up soon on June the 2nd and 3rd, brought to you by his broadcasting network. For further information, call 01120 739 559. That's 01120 739 559.
Hello, fellow Malaysians. This is Annette Aruraja from Stramban Wesley. My hope this GE14 is that whatever our political inclinations, we will extend ourselves to bring a different spirit of generosity, love, and reconciliation in the midst of all the divisions and tensions. Let's pray unwaveringly for the renewal of our beloved nation.
Malaysia Bible Seminary is Malaysia's oldest interdenominational Bible college. We trained all who desire to study the Word of God at various levels, certificate, diploma, right up to master's level. The lectures are taught by people who are professionals in their own fields and also very experienced leaders and pastors. And therefore, not only would you go deep into the Word of God, you're able to apply what you learned into your life and into your ministry. Please visit our website if you want to know more. It is at mbs.org.my.
Hi friends! Weekly Sermons is now released every Wednesday and is called the Midweek Service. This week's sermon is from Pastor Bernard Day, entitled Miracle Working Obedience. Look out for that. And now for this week's interview.
Hi everyone, you're listening to Rhema Radio, the weekly podcast on faith, culture, music, and more. This is Jason Ding, and today we're going to talk about a topic which is very relevant to Malaysians everywhere. Once every 5 years, Malaysians go to the voting booth and they put in their votes, and these are defining moments because we get to decide, in our part, who would be the next government that would lead Malaysia. And in the studio, we have two very prolific people, in my eyes, people who are, I feel, very invested in this topic, people who are very passionate about the well-being of our country. Firstly, we have Pastor Siew Meng, who is pastor of CDPC. Hi, Pastor B.
Hi,
Pastor Yi.
hello.
Pastor Yi is was also involved in grassroots politics in Kelana Jaya before he became a pastor, and you were involved in that for how long?
15 years.
15 years,
Yeah.
wow. And but now he's a pastor for the past 4 years now in CDPC. All right. And also in the studio is Johor-born Malaysian Ramanathan. Okay. He has been a Christian for at least 4 decades now. He was a student of mechanical engineering in Edinburgh University in Scotland. In 2013, he retired from paid employment as a head quality in Asia Pacific for an American multinational company. All right. Since then, he has been an avid blogger. Also columnist and active participant in 3 NGOs, namely Bersih 2.0, Caged, and Proham. He's a member of Bangsa Lutheran Church and is he blogs regularly since 2009 at this blog URL Right to Rest. There's WRIT to rest.blogspot.com. Welcome to the studio, Rama.
Thank you.
Yeah. How often do you blog? I mean,
well, there are periods when I blog don't know. Sometimes I blog every day. There are times when I only blog once a month. It varies. It depends on what's going on and how busy I am.
Sure. So leading up to the elections, more busy.
Well, actually, lately I've been blogging more about disappearances in Malaysia. But
I see.
I think leading up to GE14, I will be writing more. Yeah.
Okay. So today we thought as Rhema Radio, we would like to engage this topic. It's a very truly, again, relevant topic and something that we all as Christians should be involved in. But maybe I can start with that. Should Christians be involved in politics?
Yeah, I think it's our mandate as Christians to be a part of the democratic process of the nation. I think of Genesis 1:28. I think it's a cultural mandate where we are called to subdue the earth, to rule, to ensure that there is justice and righteousness in our world, and Christians are to be involved in that. And so, being involved in the democratic process of a nation is doing our Christian duty in this case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can take it one step back. What would you define is politics? We start with the basics.
I think politics is as simple as a group of us. Let's say, where do we want to go for lunch? Okay. I'm gonna press in on where I like, maybe the duck rice down the road, or maybe, and you're gonna press in, and and then that's politics. We press in what we want, and we influence each other.
And you give your reasons.
And we
why
give our
duck
reasons.
rice versus nasi lemak versus banana leaf rice.
Yeah, but as a community, we then decide what we want to do, and we all do it. And so it's not. I think it's been conditioned in our minds to think that's a dirty or bad word, but it's not. It's a community, a decision made by a community, a group of people that have a vested interest in something, and in this case, the nation of Malaysia.
Sure. So it's not just one person who decides, hey, all of us go for duck rice, but there's a democracy. All of us vote.
That's right.
For where we want to eat.
That's right.
And eating is very, very important to all Malaysians everywhere.
Amen.
What do you think, Rama?
I guess I've had to ask this question many times over the past several years, because we don't really learn about politics other than the bad news that is reported, because people like to read about bad news. They like to read about corruption. They like to read about, what a politician drank late night in a pub, things like that. Yeah. So we don't really hear about the good things. Sure. So when we start reading history, for example, and we look at the development of the Constitution, which gives us so many rights in Malaysia, we think, well, it was a political process in which so many people engaged in that resulted in the 1957 Constitution, to which we appeal so often. So I had to think in those terms. And I think, for me, the most helpful way to think about politics, especially as a Christian, was when I read about, I suppose, 10 years ago, something that John Stott wrote. And he talked about the Good Samaritan. And the way he introduced the parable of the Good Samaritan was really very striking. And he said, look, think about it today. You're at a set of traffic lights. There are, and that avoids having accidents. But it wasn't always so. And he said, before, there were no traffic lights. And then, when there was an accident, people would help whoever was injured, take them to the hospital, and so on. And he said, then, as more and more accidents happen, well, what do we want? We want more and more people to stop and help? Okay, we bring in ambulances. Is that the answer? Mm-hmm. Or is there a better answer? And is the better answer establishing traffic lights? And to me, that was a very good way to think about, what it means. So we have the Good Samaritan, who basically helped someone who was injured on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. But what's the right thing to do? Yes, if you're an individual who sees that, that's the right thing to do. But wouldn't it be better to make the road straight, to have lights, to have police patrols, and so on. And isn't that something that God calls us to do because we have gifts that He has given us that we can exercise? So I needed to really be, beaten on the head with a simple message like that before I understood what politics was. It's basically engaging with people around us to make the world a better place and a safer place for everyone so that we can all thrive.
That's right.
That's really my view of politics.
And I like that, the analogy of the traffic light. And I think it took a long time for people to come up with that, and for people to then accept it as the right way to drive on roads. And I think maybe the danger is when people stop looking at traffic lights.
Yes.
And people decide to take matters into their own hands. And it took a long time to create those traffic lights. And we're talking a very analogous term. But if the traffic lights are broken, then that's something that we should come, I guess, as you say, as Christians, we should help out or influence.
Exactly.
Okay. So before coming to the studio, we were talking about ourselves, and I think specifically we wanted to speak to people who are, many that I know in my circles at least have decided, okay, I'm going to vote. I'm going to play my rights and my responsibility as a Malaysian to vote and exercise that right. But probably we want to speak more for those who feel that voting, doesn't really matter. It doesn't make a difference anyway, or people who feel that, it's too much of a hassle. I'm staying so far away, and is it worth the trouble? What would you say to people like that?
Well, there was a time when, and I think this was GE12. I think during GE12, I was actually in Shanghai in the morning, and I had to fly back in order to vote. And I was actually in a safe constituency. I live in Segambut, and it's like almost clear who was going to win, regardless of whether I voted or not. But I felt that because I had worked so hard to influence other people to vote in what we call marginal constituencies, it was very important for myself, to make that effort to come back. And I was actually the last person to vote on that day in that constituency at that polling booth. Because as soon as I entered, they closed the doors. Wow. So I just made it. And because there was a delay in the flight and so on, there was a big rush. So this was going through my mind, I thought, why am I doing this? And I thought, people have worked so hard for me to have the right to vote. In the US, for example, blacks didn't have the right to vote until I think in the 60s. Women didn't have the right to vote in so many parts of the world. People worked so hard for so long to have this right to vote. And I feel it's a tragic thing to squander it. So I think that it's a duty, and it's something that I recall. To me, it's sort of like my baptism or my church on the day when I placed membership in my church. I think back to that day, and in the same way, I think back to this voting. And I think, you know what? I am the one who made a responsible choice between the candidates and the parties that were running in that election. And I think back to that day, and I think I have a right to expect certain behaviors and certain decisions from the incumbent in that office, Whether I voted for him or not, it doesn't matter. But I think back to that moment. I think back to all the things that I had to consider in order to make my decision that day. And that's a very important moment for me. And for that reason, I think everyone should vote. Because these are, in my book, in my book, these are things that God has given to us, moments that we can look back on that tell us what it means to be responsible citizens.
What about you, Pastor Meng? How would you respond to someone who says that, it doesn't make a difference. Why even bother? Or, my vote is only one vote.
Yeah, I think what Rama says is very true. I think it's our responsibility, and people have sacrificed a lot for it. Even in our own country, I think you think of leaders and struggles that people have put in to speak into integrity or against corruption or against oppression, and people have gone to jail for that. It's come time for us to make a decision on who is going to be the leader of our country, and if we hold back, then I think we're not being responsible. Also, I think if you think, well, I'm in a seat where it's safe, there is 30,000 majority, I don't have to do that. But I think apart from that, it's a responsibility. We can't just say, my child's going to grow up well. I don't have to be there as a father. He's going to grow up. My mother's there. I don't have to be there. I think each of us have a responsibility. Whatever the outcome is, we have to be to do what we're called to do. Yeah.
And so we need to take that responsibility or that privilege seriously, and not give in to apathy, and not give in to thinking that tidak apa, right? Yeah. As Malaysians, we are very peaceful and phlegmatic. I mean that way. So tidak apa is not a very good thing. You close one eye. Yeah, great stuff. Thank you, Rama and Pastor Meng. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about this matter of politics and how Christians should engage in politics in Malaysia.
Rhema Radio.
Hey everyone, my name is Debbie Low, and I'd like to encourage all of us to vote. It's simple. Just check out your voting details on the SPR website. Head down with your friends or your family to your polling center and vote. And while you're at it, talk to the people around you, have conversations, and get to know each other.
Hello, I'm Steve Dixon, pastor of Christian Life Cathedral in Fayetteville, Arkansas, in the United States. One of my favorite portions of Scripture is Psalms 40, 1 through 3, where the psalmist wrote, "I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and He turned to me and He heard my cry. He lifted me out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire, and He set my feet on solid ground and steadied me as I walked along. He has given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see what He has done and be amazed, and they will put their trust in the Lord."
Rhema Radio.
Welcome back to Rhema Radio, the weekly podcast on faith, culture, music, and more. And this is Jason. And in the studio with me is Ramanathan and Pastor Siew Meng. And today we are talking about why and how Christians can be engaged in politics. Right. So earlier on, I asked about does one vote matter? Does a person, someone listening to this and deciding, should I come back? Should I vote? Would it make a difference? And Rama had something to say about that.
Yeah. I'm thinking about two grand events that have happened in recent history, and not in Malaysia. The first one is Brexit. The way people decided, and it was a referendum. There was a referendum in the United Kingdom where people were talking about whether or not to remain within the European Union. And it was a very close vote. A lot of people said, we're too busy, this is not important, we don't understand the issues, let other people make the decision. And then when the decision was made, they found that it was so close that they said, I wish I had gone because I don't like the outcome. And so just a few more people having gone out to vote on that day would have made the difference. The other one, of course, is much more controversial, and that is the presidency of the United States. And I know that, there are many Christians who favor Donald Trump, and there are many who think he shouldn't be president. And these differences are there. We will always have these differences. But the question that many people are asking themselves now is, would it have made a difference if me and the other people that I was with on that day had gone out to vote on that day? Perhaps we wouldn't have had this president, perhaps we would have had another president, and perhaps we wouldn't have all these fears of impeachment and is Russia controlling the U.S. democracy and so on. So just going out to vote on that day or not going out to vote on that day may have made this huge difference. And in Malaysia, we have many seats that we call marginal. And these seats are won by majority of only a few hundred votes, sometimes only like 90 votes. So these are seats where we can make a huge difference. And so these are the seats where people should really think very, very hard about what they're going to do on election day.
If someone listening to this and then they're wondering, is their constituency part of that? Where can they find out more about? Are these 40 seats part of something that I can influence?
Sure. There is one group that I am associated with, which is Engage. There is another NGO that I'm associated with called Engage, and we're actually putting out analyses where we're listing all the marginal constituencies. So you can look there, and there are of course others. There's Invoke, for example, that's put out slides.
In fact, if you just Google 40 marginal seats, Malaysia, I think you'll find quite a bit.
I think really that's something that all of us should consider as we approach the big day, the defining moment. And it's something that we can't take for granted, really, because we are talking about the future of our nation, the future of our own livelihood, our own living, and also our children and our children's children. And one decision could change everything.
Yes.
Truly, this is a defining moment. So earlier you talked about the traffic light, right? And it's took a long time to put in place. Do you think the traffic light in Malaysia, I mean both terms, but in terms of our electoral process or in terms of the voting process, is it something that what would you say about the situation right now?
Well, Malaysia doesn't exactly shine in the area of electoral performance. There have been studies that have been done internationally that have placed us at the bottom of the heap in terms of how delineation is done. Delineation is basically deciding who can vote where. So when you go to the voting booth, your name has to appear on the electoral roll, which says you can vote at that voting booth. And if your name isn't there, then you can't vote. And the delineation is the process of deciding who votes where and the power of the vote. So, for example, you have some constituencies which have like 150,000 voters and other constituencies which have, let's say, 37,000 voters. So there is great inequality there. So from that perspective, we're not doing well. And there are also so many cases that, again, I know this because I've worked on gathering data and writing about it and speaking about it. I know there are some PPR flats, which are the low-cost flats, which are very small. They're just over 600 square feet. And there are 20 voters registered at some of these addresses. And this happens in certain constituencies where fairness in the election process isn't known to be a benchmark, let's put it that way. So they've been packing voters into these places. So there are many issues. But one of the grand ways to make all these fixes to favor individuals or parties fail is by turning out to vote. Turning out to vote can reduce the impact of all these fixes. So we don't have a great process, but there are many other ways in which we can help. PACHA, for example, which is a polling agent, counting agent, there are many opportunities for people to serve there. And at the end of the day, it's about preventing cheating or creating conditions where people will be reluctant to cheat. And there are many ways to cheat at the polling booth. And there are many ways to create conditions where that cheating is prevented. And being a polling agent or a counting agent is amongst those ways.
And to echo that, Pastor Meng, you've told me that this is a real need right now for those who, out there who have decided to vote. Yes, that's great. But what else can they do? And being a PACHA is one very key thing. And there's a need right now, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think Graduate Christian Fellowship and is in the process of organizing weekly training around Klang Valley. I think many churches are conducting
Graduate Christian Fellowship, GCF Malaysia.
Yeah, Malaysia. So it's non-partisan, but they train you to be able to to be a PACHA, and then you give your names to the political party that you want to be associated with or to help during the polling day. So that's one way that I think Christians can get involved and be part of.
For those who are not, they want to do more and they want to be a PACHA, but they don't know what it involves. So what does being a PACHA actually mean? What's the commitment like?
Okay, well, you maybe go in and be part of first of all, you got to be trained. all right, to be able to know the process.
And there are trainings happening every weekend.
Every weekend there's trainings around the Klang Valley.
So if you're interested, people out there interested, they can always go online and search for Pacha training to GE14, and then they'll be able to find different locations where the trainings are being held, and they can sign up for that.
That's right. That's right. And then so on that day you go in. I think there are maybe three shifts. You go in and you sit down, you observe the people coming in, the names will be called with the IC number. You have a list, you have a electoral voters on your table, and you strike them off. And so you check the IC, you check the name against the IC. The IC is passed through you. You make sure that it's a legitimate person coming in. Then the person goes in to vote, and you see him cast his vote. You watch him. So you are observing. You are recording, and then so then the counting agent stays back to make sure that every vote is tallied up correctly, put into the right party, and so the process is done. So it's all very transparent. If there's a pacha there, if the candidate has a person representing him in that room, then it's safe. Then that the ballot box is being watched. It's not moved. It's counted right here in that room. So,
so there's a process in place, and for people who voting is just one part of it. But if the right votes doesn't go to the right people, and it's not counted the right way, then of course we may not get the right results.
Exactly.
As accurate as we can.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's one way of putting it, and there's a need right now. You're saying.
That's right. That's right. So I think around maybe just Peninsular Malaysia, I heard something like 20,000 pachas needed. One particular group, I think it was in Vogue, who said they only have about 6,000 to 7,000 trained. And of course, then we're not taking into consideration that there are other groups being trained, but basically we need, the parties, the whole candidates, they need about 20,000 pachas.
20,000, and there's a huge gap right now that's not filled up at the moment. So you heard it here. There's a great need for pachas, and there's something that you can be involved in if you've already decided to vote, and you're asking what else can I do? And being a pacha is one thing that you can do, right? So we're going to take another short break right now, and when we come back, we're going to talk more with Rama and Pastor Meng, and how we can play a part in this whole process.
Rhema Radio.
Dear fellow Malaysians, we all want to see God work in our land. But God also works through our hands, so we can make history in this General Election 14. So go out and vote, go and volunteer, go and make a difference, so that we can have a Malaysia we can all be proud of and excited to share with others about. So go and do something.
Terima kasih, saya Pastor Augustine Sang daripada St. Michael Sandakan, Sabah. Ingin berdoa untuk negara kita Malaysia, bahkan Sabah dan Sarawak. Mari kita berdoa. Bapa di surga, terima kasih, Engkau sangat baik, dan kasih-Mu tidak pernah berubah daripada dahulu, sekarang, dan selamanya. Hamba-Mu berdoa untuk suku-suku bangsa yang ada di Malaysia, bahkan seluruh Asia, supaya Tuhan karya penyelamatan Engkau lakukan. Dan hamba-Mu berdoa supaya mereka yang belum ada keselamatan, Engkau lakukan keselamatan melalui pelayanan di seluruh dunia dan di seluruh negara kami Malaysia. Hamba-Mu berdoa untuk keamanan negara kami. Kami berdoa juga untuk pemulihan dan juga keselamatan bangsa-bangsa yang dalam negara kami. Kami berdoa untuk ekonomi yang baik, pentadbiran yang baik, dan kehidupan yang harmonis yang baik, dan juga kemakmuran untuk suku-suku bangsa. Dan hamba-Mu berdoa untuk semua gereja bersatu untuk melakukan pelayanan penginjilan ataupun pemuridan untuk suku-suku bangsa, supaya kedatangan-Mu yang kedua kali, Tuhan, tidak terhalang karena firman-Mu tidak diberitakan kepada seluruh bangsa. Untuk itu Tuhan, Engkau perlengkapi semua gereja, semua anak-anak dan hamba-hamba Tuhan untuk pergi dan memenangkan jiwa-jiwa di dalam dan di luar negara kami. Terima kasih Bapa, inilah doa dan permohonan hamba-Mu yang kupanjat hanya di dalam dan atas nama Tuhan kami Yesus, Tuhan penolong dan juru selamat kami. Amin.
Rhema Radio.
Welcome back to Rhema Radio, the weekly podcast on faith, culture, music, and more. And just now I blundered a little bit. I actually said Rama Radio because Rama, you've been sharing so much. I thought we should just name our station Rama Radio. So you've been listening to Rama and Pastor Meng, and we're talking about this topic of election. The question I want to ask right now is, as Christians, how do we decide one party over the other? What are the guidelines from the Bible, would you say, we could look to? I don't know.
Yeah, I have thought about this for several years now because I'm really like I said earlier, never learnt about it from, anyone.
No schools.
Yeah,
no
my church membership class didn't cover this.
Sure. And in fact, churches at one point, they shy away from this.
Exactly.
Even now, maybe they something that we don't talk about. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I find very helpful to think about is that a lot of the time I'm thinking in terms of justification by faith. Because, I'm a Christian and I'm justified and I'm acceptable to God. And so justification is so important to me. And it's important to me because I want to share it as well. But at the same time, I have to think about the justice of God. And when we read the Bible, the prophets in particular, there is so much about justice. When you read the book of Nahum, for example, you see God saying to the people of Nineveh, saying, you people haven't acted justly, and they're not even Hebrews. The people are not even Hebrews. And then when you see in the New Testament, particularly in, of course, Romans 13, where we are to, follow the government, but then there's also Revelation 8, where there are times when we shouldn't obey the government. So how do we make these choices? And I think it's about believing in the Spirit, believing that the Spirit has not left the earth and left us to ourselves, but that the Spirit guides us into all truth and helps us to make these choices. So, to me, it's about looking at candidates, looking at parties, looking at the promises that they make, whether in their manifestos or their speeches, looking at whether they're talking about short-term satisfaction. I will give you this, that, the other in 6 months, in 1 year, or about establishing the conditions where all humans can prosper and thrive, and we can all exercise our gifts the way God wants us to. So I think that's a very important thing to think about. The other thing that I think is very important for us to talk about is integrity, because if a person cannot be trusted with a little, he cannot be trusted with a lot. And so if you have someone who is not behaving as a person of integrity, then do we really want that person to be our leader? I mean, if he's not good enough, to lead us in our churches, for example, why would he be good enough to lead us in the nation? So I think these are some of the questions that we need to be thinking about as we make these choices.
Yeah. I think one of the things is the question is always, should we be partisan as Christians? And I think we forget that what is the government? In England, the opposition party is known as Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition.
Yes.
That's part of the government. The opposition is part of the government. So we are not going against... And I think Malaysia, because we have 60 years of one party, we think that incumbent government is the government and everyone else is outside. But the opposition has a place to play. The government has a role to play in checks and balances. And so when we're not going against Romans 13. When we choose any one party or speak against corruption or against injustice, we're actually doing what is right in speaking up on these issues and being and providing our support and help towards a party is part of the democratic process. Is part of doing what is choosing the right government and then every 5 years we get to do this, right?
I would also like to add a little bit more to that. I think that's very important. And I think it's also important for us to realize that it's not just about polling day. It's about between now and polling day. What are the conversations that we have? Do we dare to pick up parts of the manifesto, or do we dare to pick up something that a party member said? And talk about it, whether it's in our cell groups or, in our little makan sessions, we always makan, rather than talking about the usual things that we talk about, which is the best place to eat, why don't we talk about which is the best candidate? Kind of turn it around.
Yeah, and I like what both of you are saying and what you said earlier about, we have to choose. We as Christians, we need to choose, right? Because this is our responsibility also to ensure that who we feel should lead the people is in the right position. And that goes down to the policies and what the integrity of a person. And the interesting thing now is that it's not just what they say, but whether they fulfill it. Right? Yes. It's not just as good as saying, I'm going to do this, and they don't do it, then that person is not good for their word.
Yes.
And this is something that we have to consider also when voting.
Yeah, Jason, can I just add, if one of the things is it's not just polling day, as Rama said, but we can actually go in and help. There's a lot of needs. You can go in to help in a campaign. You can go up to your current MP or Adun and say, is there something I can help? And they need help in administration of pachas coming in. They need help in, like Rama said just now, arranging chairs, getting the campaign, getting the what do you call it, the campaigning ready process. Yeah.
So and there's a need, right?
There is a need, yeah.
Although they may not sometimes make it very explicit and they don't shout about it, but all these people, there are needs.
Yes. And I would also add, one of the things that I found myself doing in the past 10 years, something that I hadn't done before, I actually contribute candidates. I actually give them money because many of them don't have money.
Correct.
They're really struggling. So they have to raise their own funds. Sometimes we have this kind of belief that somehow their party is giving them the money to run the campaign. But actually, each one is responsible for raising their own funds. And so we have the opportunity to contribute to them as well. And I actually know of someone who said, okay, this year I'm not going to take a holiday. I'm going to use that money and I'm going to give it to a candidate who I think is going to make a difference.
Wow. That's amazing.
I feel so excited about that.
And you're sowing into the country.
Absolutely. Wow, investment.
Okay. So would you say that this GE14 is different from previous GE? How would you differentiate this year from the past 5 years before this and 5 years before that?
Yeah. This is, for me, the most exciting of all the elections. I don't think there's a more exciting place to be than in Malaysia right now. And I think this is mainly because we're seeing the melting away in some areas of race-based politics. This is a huge watershed. So we have had many parties that, have come up that basically say, we're not here because we want to protect our own racial group's interests. Of course, they may say one thing just during the election period and then do something different, when they come into office. You never know. But it's exciting to hear that. And it's exciting to hear, people are not talking about, before you decide, am I going to sponsor someone's flight? You don't ask, is that person Malay or Chinese or Indian? Oh, if he's Chinese, okay lah, I will sponsor. But if he's Indian, why don't I let an Indian sponsor? That kind of thing isn't happening. And so to me, this is very exciting. And also, we are seeing a real possibility of change. So there's a lot going on. We don't know which analysis is going to prove to be true. This is an election which is so difficult to predict because of all the changes that have happened in society.
Right.
So there's a grand momentum that could be there if we all come out to vote.
Right.
If we come out to vote and we just give that little extra push in a certain direction, we may become such a thriving and flourishing nation. And we may be the beacon for democracy and good governance. Of course, it's going to take many years, but we may be the shining light in this region.
Right.
So what I'm hearing is there is progress.
Absolutely. Yes.
There's from the things that we, as Malaysians, we worked hard on the previous elections and the previous GE13, GE12. It's moving to this place which could be a tipping point.
Absolutely.
Also,
yes.
I think there's a lot at stake because there are people who are hard-pressed, who live really hard, having 2 jobs and all that. And so they are with the GST and with different policies. So a lot is at stake. Also with 1MDB and different things going around the world. this is an opportunity, I think.
And like you said, it's really exciting. I'm just looking at different Malaysians rising up, with the whole Jom Balik Undi and different initiatives of ride-hailing, and even our own Moses Chan in our studio, he also had initiative to start a ride-hailing for OKUs. I mean, people who need special needs to go to the voting booth so they can carry out their duties. And it's very exciting, isn't it? It's truly a one Malaysia scenario.
Yeah. So, since GE14, from GE13 to now, there has been so much growth in political awareness in our country.
Yeah.
There have been so many people who have been prosecuted. People have come up with things like Freedom Fund, where you pay the bail for people who have been, unfairly taken in and so on. And I'm also involved with Freedom Fund. So we've seen some of these things. We've seen how people are so willing to contribute money, to say we need to protect the rights of people from being trampled upon. So it's really so exciting. I really cannot think of a more exciting place to be between now and the 9th of May.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's exciting, and I think there's a choice that we can make whether we want to be part of that excitement, in a sense, not just for the excitement's sake, not just for the trending or the buzz of it, but because it is so meaningful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, final words for those who are listening before we wrap up.
Get out to vote.
Short and sweet.
Yeah.
And to the point. Pastor Yi, Siming?
Volunteer in every way. Pacha, you are needed. Get out to vote, get out to help. Let's make this a democratic process. Be involved in this democratic process. Yeah.
I, for one, am very hopeful. It's true, really, seeing people come together and the spirit of, being proud of Malaysians, If you can't be proud about other things, we can be proud of Malaysians coming together.
Yes.
And really, like you said, sowing into the country. And it's a beautiful, beautiful sight. Right. So you've been listening to Rama Ramanathan and Pastor Yisu Meng, and we've been talking about the coming elections and how we can be a part of that, and you should be a part of that. And we hope and we pray that Malaysia will come to a place where we can all be seeing growth and progress in a way they've not seen before. Right? God bless, and God bless Malaysia.
Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Aaron, and you're tuning into Rhema Radio. This is an exclusive first listen to my new single, Mixed Signals, featuring Carmen Uy. On the 25th, you'll be able to listen to it on all other musical platforms like Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, you name it, you can hear it there. But this is an exclusive Rhema Radio first listen. Hope you guys enjoy. God bless.
You make me smile like an off-center picture, and you don't even know it. You don't even know it. You make me feel all the things that I feel, but I don't even show it. I don't even, you make me smile like an off-center picture, in the wrong position, with the wrong fixtures. I'm slowing it down, that's how I usually take it now. And if I'm stunning too hard, I'ma turn it back down. I never thought that this could happen to me once again, but I did not believe in coincidences involving pain, cause the degree of deviation is so infinitesimal. It can only mean that everything was in the Father's dream. Logic, fact, providence, direction, like creation being subjected to one is doing porridge, incarcerated to the fact of brains in its chains. But the more that I maintain, man, the more I go deranged. Orange is the new black, that's what they say, but they never say keep the orange down at its bay. They will always say keep the darkness away from the light, cause if the darkness is your light, then how bright is that light? All in repetition, second time fronting. I'm trying to make sense of the situation now, but the more that I try, man, the more that I bow out to the circumstances inflicted by time, as the marching never ceases, but only seems to be leading to a surefire miss or misdemeanor action, or a mistaken conversation leading to confusion. Mental blocks, barricades and stops, knowing that all action has equal counter reactions, that it might be a sign or a fatal attraction, maybe just another turn to a heartbreak And what if it's not intended, designed for destruction, but instead for the notion that everything happens for the good of those who love them. So if that's the case, then nothing ever has to be in question. That I still don't know it yet. And only you know what I mean. And I'm still trying my level best not to be seen. But really, if that is really so, then it's silly. Cause in doing so, I inevitably break down in melodies. And verily, I say to thee, the lyricist inside of me is showing much affinity to the level of poetry. Seriously, I'm not playing, I'm just saying. Emotions racing, mind spacing, heart displaying for all to see. This is definitely more than seems, but courageous vulnerability is something I believe in. And yes, this is me, broken pottery, stained glass window, but still hopeful to see. Wishful thinking never got me anything. Learned it from experience, never wish to repeat it.
This segment features Rhema Radio exclusive music by Aaron. You heard it here first. This episode was recorded and mixed by Moses Chan at Prodio Studio. Do connect with us at facebook.com/rhemarad.10. Comment, like and share our weekly shows so we can do more. Have an overcoming week ahead. God bless Malaysia.
Rhema Radio is a non-profit initiative by the Love Malaysia Media Project. Time, talent, and treasure is put into creating the content you listen to. Your support enables us to keep this going and expand further. Log on to www.rhemarad.io/support to find out how you can partner with us in creating value-adding content that ministers to the masses. Once again, that's www.rhemarad.io/support. Let's get the word out there.
I found it on Rhema Radio.